What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is my top 10 films of 2022. Look, I know I'm getting this video out to you guys rather late, and I do apologize about that. But look, here's the thing. It's a lot easier for me to reveal my top 10 worst films of the year because, to be quite frank, I don't usually hate like a lot of films. So there's usually, it boils down to there's like, hey, 10 films that I hate. And yeah, it's quite easy. Now, on the flip side of things, especially if it's a really good year for films, which 2022 was, it makes it rather difficult to boil down, hey, here's 5 honorable mentions and then here's 10 films that you love and then figure out the order. So it was very difficult for me to do this, but I'm happy to say that as I'm filming this video, I have that down and I'm very excited to give this video to you guys. And here's the thing, this is a special video in that I'm actually joined today by Sergey of SkynetGen. If you're new to the channel, I've worked with SkynetGen many times. Sergey is a good friend of mine, and honestly, I'm very happy to have him on this channel. And the way it's going to work is simple. What's going to happen is Sergey is going to give his honorable mentions, and then his number 10 to 6, and then I'll be doing my honorable mentions, my 10 to 6, then he'll be giving his 5 to 1, and I'll give my 5 to 1, and then, of course, things will wrap up. But yeah, guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. Sergey, take it away.
How's it going, guys? I want to thank Chad for having me on the channel once again. Today we're talking about the top 10 films of 2022. Really great year for movies. It's just like so many to choose from. Really hard to narrow it down into a top 10, which is why I made another video on my channel talking about some of the honorable mentions and movies to check out, because forming this top 10 was really difficult. So I will give a shout out to like 5 films just to give some honorable mentions, but if you want to check out some of my other films that I enjoyed throughout the year, you can check out my video on my channel. You can always check out the Letterboxd account too, which I log every film that I've seen last year. So some of the other titles that just missed the top 10 that I was really kind of contemplating whether they would make the cut or not would be the Banshees of Inisherin, Bones and All, Happening, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and the Finnish film Hatching. Unfortunately, those were not able to make that cut, which is why I'm going to go with my number 10 pick was After Yang. Yes, the A24 film kind of went under the radar for most people, but I thought that was a really striking and a really impactful film for me that touched on memories and the importance of memories. And it was one of the more memorable films of the year for me, from the melancholy score, from the acting, and just the emotional core that the film carried. It was one of the strongest I've seen throughout the year. And while it came out earlier on in the year, it was a film that really stuck with me throughout the entire year, despite how many great films there were. At number 9 is a Iranian film that I originally thought was going to be a contender for the Oscars, and I was like, you know what, I'll go check it out. It's not going to be online for a while. And I was really pleasantly surprised by another emotional story that was very hard to watch, but with the way the story is structured and the twists and turns that keep coming and the acting and the documentary feel to it, it was a film that kept me on the edge of my seat and one of the best thrillers of the year. And I'm really glad I checked it out because it was really one of the best films of the year, and I wish it did get a little bit more attention. Number 8 is Robert Eggers' The Northman, a film that really holds together because of its incredible perspective and that sound design. I think that is one of the few things that really made me remember this film a lot, is the bombastic score and the incredible cinematography. The acting is really good, and a perspective that happens like halfway through the film, if not even further on, that you start to really realize that this actually makes sense. Like everything we had been seeing up until this point, we now understand why we're getting this perspective. And the story at heart was what made it interesting, and a lot of the technical achievements of the film just made it shine even more. Number 7 is Decision to Leave, another international film that wasn't expecting much, went in and was blown away by the cinematography. Let's talk about that, because that's one of the best looking films of the year. It's got really interesting structure, because about 30 minutes in, maybe an hour, you know, every like act or so, you're thinking, okay, well, this movie's wrapping up. There's no way anything else is going to happen with the way the story is going. But the way it keeps unfolding just keeps you guessing the entire time. The twists keep coming, and it makes it a really like challenging journey because you don't really know what's going to happen. And The acting's great. Like I said, cinematography is amazing. The score is really good. It plays around with a lot of emotions, and just a film that I really remembered when it came to forming this top 10. I thought, this definitely has to be in the top 10. And number 6 is Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. No surprise, Steven Spielberg, he's been making films for 50 years now. He has not really lost his touch. He's had some okay films, he's had some really great films, and this is one of those great films that you could come back to and watch many times over. Really heartfelt and coming of age story that plays a lot with your emotions and has really great symbolism and meaning behind everything, while also being sort of a tribute to the director himself, because it's loosely based on his life. It's a movie that's about the passion of filmmaking and what film does and how it brings people together and the different inspirations you find around you. So just a really heartwarming film with a positive message and a more positive look on Hollywood. It's a fantastic film, and I had to include it in my top 10. But there were 5 films that were better than all the ones I just mentioned, and I will get back to those as soon as Chad delivers his 10 through 6.
All right. Thank you very much, Sergey. So for me, I'm going to give you guys my 5 honorable mentions. So the honorable mentions are The Sadness. This is a film that's on AMC Plus. I'm hoping it gets a physical media release at some point. This was a welcome surprise. It was a horror film that I found genuinely creepy, but also on top of that, quite thrilling. It is a film that shouldn't be missed, especially if you are a horror fan. It is very difficult to watch, though, in terms of the violence, but it is a really good film. And that ending, it's a gut punch, and I quite liked it. Next up, we have Holy Spider. This was a film I saw in January. I, honest to God, thought that this was a 2023 film until I looked it up and saw that it was in the running for Best International Feature and for 2022. And I realized, I was like, oh, so this is a 2022 film. And I gotta say, Holy Spider is a really, really good film. I loved it. From the first frame, I knew that I was in for something special. If you can, I would highly recommend you track this film down. It is really good. Next up, another international feature, we have RRR. I really, really wanted to have this in my top 10. I really dug RRR. I saw it twice. Hope this gets a physical media release, but if not, it is on Netflix. I would highly recommend everyone check this out. This is what I feel like a lot of people pretend the Fast and Furious movies are at this point, but RRR is a billion times better. It is over the top, yes. It is combining many different genres, yes, but it is also a feat for filmmaking. It is kind of funny because in the opening scene, they have like a disclosure where it's like, in case you need to know, the animals aren't real. And it's like, yeah, we get it. We can tell. So that's the only gripe I really have with the movie. Other than that, it's a blast from start to finish. I would highly recommend RRR. And again, I really wanted it to make my top 10, but here we are. Next honorable mention is Men. This was tough to honestly not include in my top 10. I loved Men. I saw it 3 times now, and I don't know physical media, so you already know what that means. I'll be seeing it many, many, many more times. Similar to Annihilation, which came out in 2018. Annihilation didn't make my top 10 films of 2018, but it is a film that I come back to many more times, and I feel like Men's going to be the same case. I really like it. Not for everyone, but that's okay. I really dug Men. And my last honorable mention, this was so close to making my top 10, but this would be like the number 11 slot. But my last honorable mention is Babylon. I really wanted to include this. I really did. But here's the thing. As entertaining as I found this film to be and as like impactful that ending was, I just couldn't help but constantly say to myself, this is basically Boogie Nights. Like, it follows Boogie Nights to the T, honestly. There were so many things where it's like, Boogie Nights, Boogie Nights, Boogie Nights. And that did kind of take away a little bit. Maybe it won't upon rewatching, because I do plan to, purchase this on 4K. But that was something I couldn't help but think about at times. But again, still quite like this film. It is very funny. It does a really good job in terms of the themes and message that it's tackling. I would definitely recommend it, even though I have to give the slight caveat that it's similar to Men. It's not for everyone. There are certain sequences where it's like, okay, they did that. So not for everyone, but I really do appreciate Giselle just going for it. The ambition is on display, and yeah, it's quite entertaining. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Now, let's get into the top 10. So my number 10 slot is The Fabelmans. This is the latest Steven Spielberg film. I really liked this film in theaters. It was really, really riveting, honestly, to watch in terms of just the drama. The family drama in particular, I found to be quite enthralling. Like, I was able to not necessarily relate to a lot of the things that were going on with the family, but I was just really able to empathize with the lead character with all that he was going for. Additionally, I wanted to also mention the filmmaking, which I guess it's no surprise, but the filmmaking is top tier. I especially like the cinematography and how it was constantly moving. John Williams' score, per usual, is quite good. The acting across the board is really good. Michelle Williams gives yet another great performance, and the cameo at the end. Not going to spoil who the cameo is by, but loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And that is why it's my number 10. I am looking forward to purchasing this on 4K, by the way. As of filming this video, it hasn't been released on 4K, but I definitely will be purchasing it. But yeah, it's my number 10. Next up, my number 9 is Bones and All, the latest Luca Guadagnino film, the same director that gave us Call Me By Your Name, Suspiria, and many more. I like this run of films that Luca Guadagnino has done. I was a huge fan of Suspiria. I thought that was a masterpiece. Call Me By Your Name also was a masterpiece. Bones and All, it's not a masterpiece for me, at least not yet. Maybe it will be upon rewatching. But as a first-time viewing, I just found it to be captivating. I found it to be combining genres that normally I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, coming-of-age films are kind of hit or miss. And on top of that, especially road trip movies, just combining those, then also combining horror and romance, I found it to be a great blend of all those genres. And I was very much so surprised, despite... I really should have been surprised though, because it's like, again, it's Luca Guadagnino, and it's also Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross doing the score, which I also wanted to give huge props to, and that's why I'm saying this, because holy cow, the score is so great at just being really romantic, and then the score slowly creeps in to be have these horrific sounding elements, and it's great, and vice versa. Really good film. Unfortunately, it's only on Blu-ray, so I'll probably be waiting for the price to go down. Hopefully, this gets a 4K release down the line, because it is a visually captivating film. Also, huge props to Mark Ruffalo. Like, the other performances are great, but Mark Ruffalo, when he's on screen, holy cow, what a performance. But yeah, I liked Bones and All quite a bit. I know some people that weren't the biggest fans, which is a shame, but I quite like Bones and All, and that's why it's my number 9. Next up, my number 8, and this is going to be a surprise for many viewers if you've been following the channel but haven't been following me on Letterboxd, which you should follow me on Letterboxd now. But my number 8 is Tar. That's right. Tar went from like a 3.25 to now like a 4.5 out of 5 upon rewatch. This is why I like it when movies get nominated for Best Picture, because I have it where my now wife, we watch movies together in terms of like the Best Picture nominees. And a lot of times there are certain ones that she hasn't seen, so I'll rewatch it with her. And in the case of Tar, I rewatched it with her in theaters, and I found myself to be really intrigued by it. The second time around, it just clicked. Everything clicked for me. I didn't feel like an hour needed to be trimmed down the way I did the first time. Instead, I was just like, only 10 minutes. But nonetheless, I just found the messages, the themes to be quite interesting. And I especially found myself blown away that the first time around I didn't realize that the sequence of where Cate Blanchett's character Tar, where she's giving the lecture and everything, and her and the student are going back and forth. I didn't realize before, but that entire sequence was one long take, unbroken. It's impressive, man. It's really, really good. It's not my favorite Todd Field film. That would go to little children. But that being said, I still nonetheless really dug Tar, and I can see myself not only buying it on 4K, but watching it many more times. Sure, the slow burn pacing is something that you'll have to be in a certain kind of mood for, but nonetheless, I still find myself that a couple weeks later after rewatching it, I can't get it out of my head, man. I really can't. And that's why I have it on my number 8. Next up, my number 7. This won't be a surprise to many, but my number 7 is The Batman. I really liked this film. I have an issue with it, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but I really liked this film. I was probably one of, 5 people on this earth that was like, you know what, Robert Pattinson is going to be great. As soon as the news broke that he was going to be playing Batman, I was like, he's great. He's a great actor. Like, he's proven himself. Watch Good Time. Watch The Lighthouse. He's a great actor. And sure enough, 2 minutes into The Batman, I was like, yep, see? He's great. And not only that, it takes the template of Seven, and by no means is it a masterpiece like Seven, but it still does a really good job of taking those elements, implementing it into the superhero genre, and making it something that still feels fresh, despite us having so many adaptations of Batman. It holds up on its own. It makes Gotham feel like a living, breathing character. It's got really interesting characters. The villain, Paul Dano, is really quite good. I will say that I do feel as though people shouldn't watch the trailer. I'm saying that because the trailer, the trailer reveals certain information where I'm like, really? You revealed that in the trailer? Like, I'm just saying. But my big thing about this film, I love the filmmaking, I love the entertainment value, I liked it even more second viewing. My big thing is that I'm not the biggest fan of the last 5 minutes. That's it. I feel like the last 5 minutes is just like set up for future films. So I feel like it kind of gets to a point where it's like, you just end it right here. And it's like, no, it continues. It continues. And it's like, but still, nonetheless, I still love this film quite a bit. That's why it's my number 7, and I own it on 4K, so you best believe I'll be seeing it more than just the 2 times that I've seen it now. But quite like this film. That's why it's my number 7. Next up, my number 6 is The Banshees of Inisherin. You're feckin' right that I included. This was a feckin' great film. I think that this film, after watching it, holy cow. I've seen it twice now. This was yet another film I saw in theaters, but then I saw it a second time. Right before it got nominated for Best Picture, I showed my wife it because I was like, this is going to get nominated for Best Picture, so, you're going to have to watch it anyway, so let's watch it together. And I gotta say, second time, it was the same type of thing, except I liked it even more, where I just was so impressed at the blending of drama and comedy. It's just a very funny movie, but the drama itself is also very searing, and I think that for a lot of people, it will be quite relatable, because let's face it, we've all had it where friendships have just ended and we're not quite sure why. In my case, this was something that I was able to relate to in terms of family drama. I'm not going to get into it, but I just found myself to be really, really invested in this film, the story itself and everything. And honestly, the themes are just so enriched, and I love Carter Burwell's score. It's a film that I just can't recommend enough. It's a perfect blend of comedy and drama.
So number 5. Number 5 is pretty surprising. I was not expecting Avatar: Way of Water to be anywhere close to my top 10. It is pretty much the first movie, but it improves everything about the first movie. And I think that's what was missing really in the first movie, was an emotional core to it. And this family dynamic in the film really kind of got you to feel some emotion finally. Of course, effects look better. They're just amazing. The fact that people had to train underwater and hold their breath for like 7 minutes is just amazing on its own. From the technical aspects, they're just completely astounding. For a story that feels very familiar, I was surprised that I was invested as much as I was, and it is a 3-hour film, so the fact that I did not feel the pacing as much is really great. And the score is fantastic, the acting is great, Zoe Saldana is fantastic in the role. The villain is sort of a copy and paste thing going on. It's not a movie without its flaws, but a movie that kept me entertained for the entire runtime, and just a movie that I was visually amazed by what I was watching. Now, it was in IMAX 3D, and I did see it in Dolby 3D the following time. Whether it holds up, that's the next question, because the home experience might be completely different watching it just on 4K. Might not be as good. Maybe a third time it won't be in my top 10. But as of right now, I was visually amazed by everything on display. The story kept me interested. The pacing was good. Effects were great. Just a well put together film. And sometimes it's the most simplest of things. Even if it's ported over from a previous film. If you tweak a few things and just hit those notes, you might end up with a really good film. And that's what this movie was. And for me, surprisingly, it made that top 5. And number 4 is a film that I probably should have hated, but somehow it's a film that had so much energy, crazy, amazing editing, and fantastic score, one of the best comedies. I mean, it's not even a comedy, but it made me laugh more times than any other film this year. And that would have to be Damien Chazelle's Babylon. Babylon's kind of like the complete opposite of The Fabelmans. It has a completely different outlook on Hollywood, whereas one's more optimistic and Babylon's more about the darker, destructive side of Hollywood. And it still has an emotional core, like some of those other films I mentioned. But I think the thing that really stood out about this film is the amazing production, the humor, the acting, just bringing the 20s back to life, even though it is a little more, I'd say, over the top, because I don't imagine the 20s looking like that. One of those films that is more of an experience than anything else, but there is some really great messages, and a great character journey throughout that entire film. Kind of hit the check boxes on like almost every category when I critique like films. This was definitely up there. So I knew it was going to be my top 5. Just where it was, I don't know. But Babylon, you know, it might not have had the most likable characters, but you understood them and you felt for them, and time just really flew by with this film. At number 3 is Darren Aronofsky's The Whale, a film that hit me emotionally more than any other film this year. I think it made me cry like twice in theaters. Just another roller coaster of emotion film. Takes place mostly in one setting, and I think that's even more impressive to say, that it's able to hold your attention for the entire runtime being shot in one place. It's one of those films that really just kicks you in the gut. You know, you watch the film and then you just kind of process your life, where you're at, where you've come from, all the wrong things you've done in your life, and how you wish you could undo certain things. And it's a very reflective film, riding on this journey through this character, and you just feel nothing but sympathy for this guy, and you also feel how unfortunate of a position it is to be in that place. So a film that might not have all the glitz and glamour, but you know, when it comes to films, sometimes it's really about the story, and this was one of the most impactful and memorable stories of the year. It had me feeling all sorts of emotions throughout, because it made me laugh too. You know, I know it's a sad, painful story, but there's also humor to kind of balance things out, and you know, it makes it a delightful watch despite it being a kind of a heavy film to carry. Highly recommend everybody check it out. Darren Aronofsky, you know, I know he's a hit or miss for people, but I think this is a film that most people can get behind. At number 2 is probably the best, and by probably I'm just generalizing, but I'm going to go ahead and say it is the best multiverse film of the year. That's right, it ain't Doctor Strange, and it sure as heck is not Thor, Love and Thunder. That's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once. Where to even begin with this film, because it's hard to talk about the film because there's a lot that goes on here, and a lot of it doesn't make sense, you know, when you're just talking about it with no context, without spoiling the movie. But I can definitely say that this is an experience that will have you bursting out laughing, crying. Another film that just carries all sorts of different emotions, plays around with different genres, has incredible editing, and a great message at heart as well. Just in all, one of the most fun and satisfying films of the year. Also another film that made me laugh quite a bit. So it's a tremendously original film, and it's not something you're going to see every day. Is it going to be for everyone? Maybe not, because it's pretty out there. You know, it requires you to have some suspension of disbelief, obviously, but it's weird. But its weirdness is kind of its charm and what makes it so unique. And most definitely one of the most unique and different and out there films, but just made it even that much more satisfying because it's so different and it's not following some formula that Marvel or Disney or whoever is doing. So really great to get films like that. But at number 1 has to be a film that completely satisfied me, no issues whatsoever, and that would have to be Matt Reeves' The Batman. The only film I gave 5 out of 5 stars to last year, and it's really no complaints. I think the second time around I enjoyed it even more than I did the first time. Just the atmosphere, the blends of different genres as well, because it feels like an old noir film at times, and it's also like a detective thriller. For a film that has been done a million times, we've gotten a different interpretation of Batman. This has been like the darkest, the grimmest we've gotten. I'm not saying the most violent, but it's definitely the darkest and most realistic. You know, it's trying to separate itself. It's not trying to be a superhero film. Like, I feel like the whole superhero aspect is like the backdrop, and this is just like a detective drama. It's like we're watching Seven or Zodiac or something, right? It has this gritty feel to it. Great soundtrack. Robert Pattinson, you know, at first didn't seem like the greatest pick, but he was fantastic in the role. Colin Farrell, he's been having an amazing year, and he just vanishes in the role as the Penguin. When I first saw it, didn't even realize it was him. In all, I just had really no complaints of the year, and it was a film that I kept wanting to revisit. It hit a bunch of different check marks for me, and I really had no issues with it. So I kind of had to give it to it, though, because it was a movie that I saw about the same. I saw it the same amount of times I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was 3 times. So when I look back, it's like the movies that I saw the most are probably the ones that I really enjoyed. So at the end of the year, Batman was the one to shine, and as much as it'd be nice for me to put like a more smaller independent film as number 1, this is the film that I feel like had the least amount of problems for me, and I was satisfied, that I was entertained, that I also had something to say, even if it's masquerading as a superhero film. So those are my picks for the top 10 films of 2022. Be curious to hear what your picks were down below, because I know it's been a crazy year for movies. Everyone's lists are going to be so different from each other. Definitely be looking out to see what other people thought were some of the best of the year. And for now, I'm going to pass over the baton to Chad, and he can unveil his 5 through 1. So thanks for having me on the channel, and I will see you guys later.
All right. Thank you very much, Sergey. Always appreciate hearing your thoughts as well as just your top 10. Really, really liked your choices. Guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure to follow Sergey on his YouTube channel on SkynetGen as well as his Letterboxd. He has a lot of hot takes. Always interesting to see. You just read it, you're like, I love it. He has really good content on Letterboxd and on YouTube. He posts maybe one video on YouTube a year, but let me tell you, that one video, it's great stuff. Let's get him to 1,000 subscribers, guys. Go to his channel, follow him. But guys, let's get down to it. The nitty-gritty top 5 of mine. So, number 5 is The Northman. I've seen The Northman 3 times. 2 times in theaters, and then a 3rd time on 4K. This is a heart-pounding film. This film makes you just want to run on a treadmill and just run into battle. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's a great film in that regards. Robert Eggers has proven himself yet again to be like an auteur. I think that this is a perfect combination of genre thrills as well as a film with messages and themes that are very impactful. I found myself to be very invested with everything that was going on. The characters are really good. And here's the thing. The main character doesn't even really say that much. But at the same time, him not saying that much is a character study that I found to be really interesting. And I'm kind of realizing that more and more, that I like those films that have it where characters don't really say that much. But, it's all in their facial expressions. And Alexander Skarsgård, really good job. This and now Infinity Pool, he's proven himself to be a really, really good actor, which, I kind of always knew. Like Big Little Lies, he was also great in. But if you haven't done so already, The Northman, it's a really good action-adventure film. It's fantasy. And if you like Robert Eggers' other films, I think that you'll like this as well. If you didn't like Robert Eggers' other films, I still think that you will like this, because I actually have a friend that I showed The Northman to who wasn't too keen on The Lighthouse and The Witch, but he liked The Northman. So, just saying. But I love The Northman. That is why it's my number 5. Next up, my number 4 is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So this film was, I'm just going to say it, incredible. I loved this rendition of Pinocchio. Del Toro, just yet again, he proves that he is one of the best directors working today. Let's face it. I'm personally a huge fan of stop motion, like claymation. So this was like a wet dream for me, just, saying that. But not only that, it's not even just like, oh, the animation's great. It's also that the voice acting is great. Alexander Desplat's score is so good. The production design, which, most people don't talk about production design with animated films, but like here, you just can't help but notice it and say, wow, this is really good. Like, this story has been told so many times before, but this film also stands out with how it's told and the way it's told. And the ending, I found myself almost wanting to cry with the ending. It was just so sad, but also so human. This is a film that I would highly recommend everyone check out. It is on Netflix. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that maybe this will get on the Criterion, collection in terms of getting a Blu-ray or 4K release. Fingers crossed, because I really do want to own this film so that way I can rewatch it multiple times. But yeah, it's my number 4. Next up, my number 3 is The Whale. This is Darren Aronofsky's latest film, and Darren Aronofsky, for me, has yet to make a bad film. That's just me personally, and this continues that trend of wow. Wow, wow, wow. I loved The Whale. Brendan Fraser gives a great performance, fantastic makeup. The one setting, kind of motif is something that, I know some people aren't the biggest fans of, and truthfully, sometimes a one-room setting almost doesn't work for me also. But here, I just found myself so invested with the lead character and even the supporting characters. The themes and messages that are tackled, the cinematography, it's just so, so good. It's very dreary, which the score is as well. But I also just found it so relatable. Like, yeah, I'm not 600 pounds, but this is something that I found myself really able to relate to with a lot of the things that he was going through. And I found it to be so emotional. Honestly, I'm just going to say it. Like, similar to Del Toro, like, I wanted to honestly cry watching The Whale. I just found it to be an overwhelming experience. But holy cow, like I really do hope Brendan Fraser wins Best Actor, because I found it to be such a great performance. I know it's a divisive film, but like let me just say, like, it's just a film that if you're on its wavelength, it's going to be really impactful. If you're not on the film's wavelength, it might not be. But for me, I found it to be quite impactful, as I already mentioned, and I can't wait to own this on Blu-ray when it comes out, because of course this is yet another film on this list that isn't getting a 4K treatment. What a surprise. But yeah, The Whale, it's my number 3. Next up, my number 2. My number 2 did get a 4K release, thank God. And my number 2 is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. What a film. What a film. I've seen this 3 times, and I will be seeing this a 4th time pretty soon, because my wife has not seen this film yet as of the filming of this video. I'm hoping that she likes this film. I've yet to meet someone that hasn't liked this film, because this is yet another example of a film that combines many different genres, and it does so seamlessly. But not only that, it's a very weird film. But for some reason, and I gotta say, it took me by surprise, because there are a lot of people that I was cautious about recommending this film to. But for a lot of people, they've been able to be on this film's weird wavelength. And I'm so about that. I'm so happy, because let me just say, this is the film that came right before Doctor Strange 2. And Doctor Strange 2 is a multiverse movie, so I was like, oh gosh, a lot of people are going to be talking about Doctor Strange 2 and not this film, and now it's like the other way around. People aren't talking about that film, but are about this, and I'm very happy about that, because I love Everything Ever All at Once. It's very well acted, it's very emotional, it's very satisfying, it's got a great ending. It's almost 2.5 hours, but the length is never an issue. It's really well paced, and it's got really, really good cinematography. I would highly recommend you check out Everything Ever All at Once if you haven't done so already. And it might win Best Picture. Wouldn't be angry if it did, because I love this film, as you can tell. It's probably my number 2. But yeah, so that was my number 2. And to be honest, I thought that was going to be my number 1 film of the year. I really did. But Christmas came early. And my number 1 was a film that I saw 2 days before Christmas. My number 1 is Decision to Leave, the latest Park Chan-wook film. This film absolutely floored me. I saw this on Mubi. I had like a free 7-day trial, to watch this. And I gotta say, I really do wish that I saw this in theaters. I couldn't see it in theaters though, because it was only in theaters for 1 week near me. And of course, that was the 1 week that was on my honeymoon. But I'm not complaining, because the honeymoon was great. But I'm just saying, Decision to Leave, that was a film that I do wish that I saw in theaters, because it is incredible. The storytelling is utterly flawless. Another example of blending so many genres seamlessly, and an ending that I said to myself, please end the way that I think you're going to end. Please do. Don't make this like a really, really happy, bow tie. Please don't. And it didn't. I was like, yes. It was such a great ending. The last scene, it is gut-wrenching. It is very sad. It is tragic. But my goodness, it is hard-hitting in typical Park Chan-wook fashion. I should have known, because this is the same director that did The Handmaiden, Old Boy, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. He's a great director. He really is. And Decision to Leave, I was blown away by this film. I know that there are some people, from what I've seen on Letterboxd, some people aren't the biggest fan of this film, because they're like, oh, it's not like, top 2 Park Chan-wook films. And it's like, okay, it's not, but it's still a great film on its own. This is a film that I would highly recommend y'all check this out. I know many of you don't collect physical media, which is a shame, but get Movie. Get Movie. A 7-day trial. It's on there for free. If you do the 7-day trial, watch it. I can't wait for this to come out in Blu-ray. Maybe it will come out in 4K at some point, but I can't wait to pick this up because I will be watching this many more times. And yeah, Decision to Leave, it's my number 1. Loved this film. But guys, that's my top 10. That's Sergey's top 10. What's your top 10 films of 2022? Let me know in the comment section down below, guys. And once again, I really appreciate y'all being subscribed to me. If you haven't done so already, though, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me down on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.